Another thing that, earlier in my career, always, when you're staring at a blank screen, you're always like, where do I begin? I have no idea. I have in Photoshop a file that has a grid already set up. It's got the different folds. And so when I open it, and it's got like 3 or 4 backgrounds, so I'm like, I'm not like starting with a fresh slate. So grid, with responsive design, grid is kind of, everybody's starting to go the grid route. When I first started, from my print days of college, grid was like mandatory, and then you had Flash where it was like, just make something look cool and move across screen, and people weren't worried about a grid. But now that you have responsive design, people are starting to realize like the grid is just a design element that's like set in stone. It's, you just got to start using a grid. So I always like to use a grid, but they are meant to be broken, so you don't have to stick to it. Just, again, if you start messing with it with responsive design, bring a developer in. I always run into trouble. I'm like, think about doing this, and the developer's like, no, that's not going to work. It's not going to work on all screens. So again, here's kind of my blank document, and I'll upload this document for anybody that wants it in the Google groups. But I like 16 columns. You can do as many, 10, 12, 14. I prefer 16. It gives me more versatility. So I have, my grid is 16 columns, and it's 960 pixels. That's for iOS tablet. So automatically, if I design within the 960 grid, I know it's going to look good on the browser, and it's going to look good on Apple tablet. So then the adjustments have to be made when you're going through user testing. Also, I have my folds based off of the browser displays for 2014. So when clients, where's the fold? That's you can bring it up and say, we've thought about where the fold is, and so forth.
So what does that mean exactly?
The
Since
fold?
You have several, I guess that's the crop area on the
browser? Basically, the screens are getting bigger and bigger, and resolutions are getting bigger and bigger, but basically the concept came from the fold, like of a newspaper, right? So like what was above that fold, but so don't get me started, I don't really believe in the fold, but clients do, so, and they like their content up front. So there's just different screen sizes. So basically with these, you're able to see like it's over 800 pixels. For most people, like 76% of browsers, don't quote me on that stat, but the fold is like at 800 or higher. So, just being able to actually put content up front there helps.
So the different ones are for like a tablet turned vertically?
Well, this one's not, but you should do that as well, like depending on if you're going to go vertically or horizontally. Okay. But these are actually browser ones. But if I had my tablet, if we were going like tablet first, a lot of times, again, since I'm doing it within 960, I'm not worried too much about it, and that can be adjusted when it's in development. But this is all, right now, that's pretty much all browser. And again, this is for mobile, and the fold is right here. So how does that look in the end? This is our website. You can see a couple things that I broke outside the grid there, but again, once we actually went to tablet, the developers just made the text smaller. And so, like, again, you don't have to be married to it. If you have, there's a lot of sites that they want to go past, they want to go full screen, and that's fine as well. And then, you can start seeing like, the majority of people are going to get some content down below the fold. And then this is how it looks when we design for our mobile view. Another grid. This is actually our events page, which is not up online. We're going to probably launch this sometime later this year or next. And but again, just trying to really think about grids. Here we have we have 4 grids for actual event dates and stuff. And then across we have 12 grid for any photo that goes with that event. And then we have 8 columns for body copy, event description, and then another 4 columns of like really detailed event info. So again, using a grid can really help set up a really nice, well organized website. So defining stuff, setting styles. Once you open up your Photoshop file or Illustrator or whatever program that you use, setting actual headlines and subheads. Smashing Boxes actually has 4 or 5, H1, H2, H3, H4, and H5. I think we did 4 headlines, depending on, we had a lot of different content, so defining those. So anything that's going to be a headline, you know it's going to be 60 pixels. Again, this is CSS that's, it's not, it might not be exactly correct. This is my own personal CSS, which I'm okay at. But again, just writing this stuff down and having a developer to look over this, they know exactly what to actually start developing with. And again, any amount of information you can give them is better because you're going to get more accurate. Sometimes you'll just hand them a Photoshop file. They don't know much about Photoshop file, and you got 60 points headline or 60 pixel headline, and they put 50. So giving them this amount of information, but setting up headlines, setting body copy. So here, it's 16 points. It's Gotham, the color set, and then having line height, spacing. That's a big deal too, and then allowing that to be very consistent across board. Anytime you have body copy, it's going to be this amount of line spacing, and then setting text links and buttons. So once you have all this, then you can actually start putting it together in your Photoshop file. And then, so again, this kind of being one of the motifs that I put across. And it's not something new or anything. A lot of websites are doing this these days. But what we call the billboard. So top of every page, we gave this area to really coming from advertising and thinking about hey, if you were driving down the street and you really wanted to just really serve up something really fast and allow people, because again, you got 8 seconds to get people in. So give them this kind of billboard. Give them a real cool image in the background. Give them a great quote or saying, and then allowing that to start to influence the content below. So here's our homepage, where we actually start talking about that we design and develop custom web and mobile applications that inspire, innovate, and disrupt. So again, when somebody gets there, that's the first thing they see. They see a picture of our development and design shop with all of our people presenting. This was our ideas page where our leaders and people that like to write about our ideas are. So again, kind of putting a really cool image with a great quote behind there. This was our culture page. People understanding what is smashing boxes, what does smashing mean? So again, just kind of really setting that tone. Smashing equals disruption. And then also for our case studies, showing off our projects, really giving that big visual image up top of letting you know who is our client with this project. So again, setting those motifs and setting things and kind of templatizing things actually helps a lot too. Even though you don't have to do that, every page can be unique. There's like I said, there's no hard fast rules. But again, so then telling story, through photography. One thing that we like to do is when we're trying to tell a story, we set up photo shoots and we do it. So again, this was an application for people that traveled and worked on the go. So again, we set up how do you tell a story with with photos without words? And so we set up, oh, he's going to be in an airport. We shot this in our office. He's going to be at the airport. He's got his bag and he's got his boarding pass. So again, like really thinking about visually, how are you going to tell that story? That helps. And then icons and copy. Again, just taking different sections. This was for Duke Practical Playbook, where it was really content heavy. So we had to drive a bunch of people, doctors and public health workers, and so we had to drive them into different places of the site. So it was really like telling them where to go through icons, and then actually a bit of copy, and then some calls to action to tell them where to go. And then illustrations. Again, if client doesn't have, if you don't have access to good photos to tell a story, you can always illustrate something that really tells a story. This was for, a home improvement site.